Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Danny Weiner of HexClad. Danny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Cameron, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so to kick things off, I'd like to start with your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
I grew up in just on the outskirts of Princeton, New Jersey, and the normal, traditional middle class, upper middle class upbringing. Dad was a pharmaceutical exec. Mom was a housewife, and having a having one Italian parent and one Jewish parent, everything was focused around the table in our house.
Mm,
So a lot
yeah,
of cooking and even more eating.
love it. Kind of growing up with your dad as an exec in pharmaceuticals and also, in the food background, what were some of your aspirations growing up? Were you involved in sports or entrepreneurship? What did that look like?
Uh, Really, like I was very involved in the arts when I was young, especially like theater and film, and I was a wannabe professional football player with little to no talent. So, so I was a high school football player, and then I had to make that decision when I was heading off to university. Do I go to some really small little D3 school where I can play, or
Mm,
do I worry about going into the best school I could get into? So I decided to err on the side of the better school.
yeah.
So yeah, so those were my aspirations, but I love that creative end. I actually had most of my extended family, aunts, uncles, grandmother, all of my the Italian side of the family, they were all in the restaurant business. So
I see.
cooking food, and I would say the service industry, and that part was very prevalent in what went on in the day to day in my extended family. So that was always something I could do. I needed to make summer money. I could, go bus tables or wash dishes or something like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure that has a huge influence on HexClad. We'll dive into that soon. But talking on education, you then went on to NYU. What led
Yes.
you to go there, and what did you study?
Uh, Actually, I went to NYU and I was in the Tisch School of the Arts and I studied theater and film. Actually,
Mm, wow. What was that experience like? Like, what did you want to do post graduation?
well, it's always fun to do something creative, especially like if it is a passion. Um, that's really how I ended up in Los Angeles, which is where HexClad is headquartered.
Yep.
I came out here to be in the entertainment business. So I was going to be an actor, writer, producer, direct, slash, slash, slash.
Yeah.
And I, and I worked in the business for a bit of time, but usually what that meant was also to supplement the income. I was a
Yeah.
bartender, I was a waiter early on. And then there's the time that you go, God, this business is far too much business and far too little creativity. Um,
Yeah.
and that's when you kind of, at least for me, that's when the passion for that business started dwindling a bit.
Mm, yeah. Now, getting into post graduation of NYU, what did you end up doing? So did you get into arts, and you said busking tables? What was that like?
Well, listen, so I moved, I right after NYU, I moved to LA 2 weeks later. And I
Yeah.
figured I'd be here for a couple of years, and then my career would be humming, and I'd probably go move back to New York because, you know, New York was always where my heart was, and
Yeah.
but then you get just those trickle bits of work that keep you going and trying for several years. A commercial here, like one line in some movie here,
Yeah.
and and then obviously, like most people in entertainment trying to break in, the money's shitty, so you gotta,
Yeah.
I tended a lot of bar, put it that way.
Yeah. So I'm curious, getting into, this realization, you're busking tables at the time. At what point did you then experiment into the food industry? Because I know you had a family background in there as well. So what role does that play in this?
So for me, when I was still, when I was in my 20s, still trying to have a career here, I had a guy I went to college with, and I remember he knew I was broke, and he said, "Listen, this weekend, I'm going to go sell cookware at the California State Fair."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Sell cookware? What do you?" He's like, "Yeah, they have all these sales areas, and there's like all this kitchen products." And he goes, "You can write up my credit card receipts for me." He's like, "I'll give you $500 for the weekend." And I was like, $500, sweet.
Yeah.
I'm there. And and I went there and I watched him take this restaurant line of cookware, and he would demonstrate it, answer the questions, put on a little show for people. And I saw him make like a couple $1,000 in a weekend. I'm like,
Mm.
I can go 10 bar and make $100 a night, or I could go work with this guy. And essentially what I did was I worked with him. Then I said, if you ever need a guy like to go do this, I can do this. And I wound up doing it on weekends at like trade shows. And so I could
Mm.
still during the week kind of pursue entertainment a bit.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, I'd go away and try to sell these products. And, and I did that for several years. And then I noticed the change where I woke up like maybe I had to get like across town. It was going to take an hour for an 8:45 a.m. audition, and I didn't want to
Mm.
go. And
Yeah.
and if you're going to be in entertainment, it's so cutthroat, it's so all consuming that if you are just not 100% devoted to it, um, you I think you need to stop at least for a while. So I was like, you know, I can't pretend anymore that this is my passion because it's really not at this point. So I kind of at the time devoted myself to becoming the best salesperson I could. And I got
Mm.
good enough at it that the parent company appreciated my work ethic, that I was a good communicator, that I was a good leader, and they offered me the role of being their national sales manager.
Wow.
And for lack of a better opportunity, I'm like, let me give it a shot.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So, how long did you end up doing that? How did that roll out for you?
So it was quite a while. I wound up becoming the national sales manager, which led me to becoming the VP of sales, and and it was a and it was a good job. In fact, I was really good at it, and I had a really good compensation package. In fact, it's one of the like they say the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
You were like trapped in it because I couldn't say no to the job, and I got to the point that though I was not lazy about it, I could do it very easily.
Yeah.
So, and though I had some ambitions for starting my own venture, sometimes you need like a real kick in the teeth almost to make you say, all right, it's either now or never.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, rolling off with that experience with that cookware brand, what influence does that have on HexClad then? When did you decide to then roll out, and then how did that that departure look?
Well, it was I learned a lot of what not to do there
Yeah.
versus what to do. But one of the key moments, and I've talked about it in the past, was um, as I was hitting like 11, 12-ish, I really saw that if we were going to be able to market effectively, we needed to have a a direct line of communication with the consumer, and we
Mhm.
needed to create um, a social aspect to this. So to
Yeah.
me, like the place was Facebook. Now this was before you could buy Facebook ads, so there was no paid ads on that at that point. But I felt like
Yeah.
what we needed to do is let's build a community there. That was really what I thought was the way that was going to make us start a relationship with a customer where they'll keep coming back because they trust us. And I went
Yeah.
to the CEO of our company at the time. And I had my laptop up and I had Facebook up. I'm like, this is where we need to be. And, he was a little older and he did one of these hands to the face things to me. And he goes, trust me, kid, this Facebook thing, it's never going to last. And I'm
Wow.
like, and I walked out of his office and I was like, I got to start my own company. And
Wow.
it was like that night that my co-founder and I had our first conversation. We used to go to the gym together and we first started spitballing about how and what we would do.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, what was that conversation like? What did you envision HexClad to be? Rolling off from this previous brand you experienced. What did that?
Well, so there's a couple things. There was one that, you're coming to the reality they have a pretty good deal and that somebody's driving in a direction that is going to directly impact your future in a negative way.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it was going to be 2 years, 5 years, whatever it was. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to retire there at that
Yeah.
point. And when Cole and I first started talking about this, we weren't necessarily going to start a competitor. I actually felt like I had people I cared about at the company. I didn't want to necessarily go head to head because I always have this confidence in myself that I'll probably win. And if I win, what does that do to them? So maybe I should just
Yeah.
go somewhere else in the space. So Cole and I were really looking into all options in the kitchenware space. I mean, I loved cooking. I loved the aspect of the celebratory process that is around breaking bread with people you care about, right? We do
Yeah.
this as friends and family, with meeting your buddies for dinner, uh, you know, cooking a big Sunday meal with your family. So I love that part of it because it was very relatable.
Yeah.
And um, so we would go looking for products in the kitchenware space. So I was still with the old company. So I would take off on Friday afternoons and hop on um, a flight to Hong Kong on Friday. I
Wow.
get there on Saturday around 6 p.m. I'd run to a trade show for the last 2 hours. Then I'd go all day Sunday. And then I'd
Wow.
be on the 6 a.m. flight back to LA on Monday and be at my desk at 11:30 and tell people I had a dentist appointment that morning. And
Wow.
and I'd look for products. And Cole and I did this a bunch of times. And I mean, we always had cookware in the back of our mind. And at this point, it was way too early to even think about try and find an investor,
Yeah.
you know. So, and knowing the cookware space on one of these trips, in fact, we were so frugal at that point that that particular trip we couldn't afford for both of us to go. So I was alone in Guangzhou, China, and um, I did not invent the laser etching process in HexClad that we use. And I
Mm.
met the gentleman who did invent it. And he was making Korean barbecue plates and selling them in
Mm.
Korea. And when you're in China, you think everybody's like a knockoff and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to see this at 20 different booths. And
Yeah.
I didn't. He pulled out a book with all these worldwide patents. And I'm looking at the patents and I'm like, did I actually kind of hit the holy grail because this is different. And I asked him immediately, have you made frying pans yet? And he's like, I'm
Mm.
starting to experiment with them. And he showed me one that he made like a Korean omelet pan, which was very shallow. I'm like, well, that won't sell in America, but I think we're onto something here. And when I left him that day, I even walked around. Imagine like, oh, geez, imagine a football stadium
Yeah.
filled with 10-foot by 10-foot booths, and everyone's a cookware booth. That's what this trade show is in like China, like a
Wow.
thousand cookware booths, and they all have the same thing. They're all selling the same crap, either a very cheap Teflon pan or a
Mm.
very heavy stainless steel pan that everything sticks to. Or we're showing up all these ceramic pastel colored pans, like booth after booth after booth with the stuff. I'm like, who's gonna buy this stuff? There's nothing new about it. And
Yeah.
so I went home that night and I started writing an email to Cole with some pictures I'd taken of this. And we, we saw something was there. And I started the conversation and I said, look, I don't know if you're going to believe in me because I'm going to ask you something right now. I said, I want exclusivity to North America, but
Yeah.
I have no money to buy anything. But I'm going to help you like make this cookware for the Western market. And I don't know why he believed in me because they were a very tiny company. I'm sure other people were approaching him a little bit. And this was in 15 and over 15 and 16. By the summer 16, we worked trying to design the pan, different heights, weights, different handles, putting our hexagon design on the outside. So it was like quite a design journey to get to
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah. That's crazy. So what did that first line look like then? Did you use him as your manufacturer then for the first like
So
couple
he's
years?
still our manufacturer and
Still
our
is.
partner. Yes. To this day. In fact, I just came back from Asia and he and I look at each other. I speak no Korean and he speaks almost no English. But we
Yeah.
just kind of look at each other and we're like, God, we built something pretty incredible now. I mean,
Yeah.
we sell in 45 countries around the world. And it's turned into something special. And he said to me, he's like, you told me this would happen. I'm like, yes. I go, but I was kind of bullshitting a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, I was hoping, but
Yeah.
but it was, extraordinarily challenging, especially, that we had this idea in our head based on my 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 wanting to build a community. We had this idea that we wanted to be the first D2C cookware company, and
Mm.
nobody believed in that. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't raise money in 2015 and 16. Like
Yeah.
they laughed me out of rooms when I brought our strategy up to them.
Mm. Wow, that's crazy. So that first line then, when did the HexClad officially launch, and what did the offerings look like at launch?
So so when we got it down, when we kind of figured out the best design, that was in the summer of 16. We put our first order in then and we got our product in the fall. And I remember we went live on the website in November of of 16. And it's funny, you think about like I remember the generation one of the website
Yeah.
was, and I was like, so like, this is awesome. And now I think back to it and I'm like, it was such a like tinker toy website. It
Yeah.
wasn't, compared to now. But we made our first sale in November of 16.
Wow.
I saved the email. Do you ever go into a corner store and they have the first dollar bill like up
Yeah.
on the wall? It's like
Yeah.
we have the first email. Hey guys, you sold a 10-inch pan, and we're like, oh boy, you know. After like having because Cole and I bootstrapped this company. Like we did not
Wow.
raise money, never raised money, and
Yeah.
and so that was a challenge. So it was like we were just emptying our retirement accounts because we believed in it, and we believed that we could actually market that way
Yeah.
online. So what it looked like in 16 into 17, it was scary. When
Mm.
you're using your own money,
Yeah.
you have to become profitable as quickly as possible, and that can be terrifying.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, being one of the pioneers in D2C for cookware, especially, what did you guys find that works for like education? And if you're not having a live presence in retail for consumers to understand how the pan works, how did you get that across?
So that's a really good question, Cameron,
Mhm.
because a couple things. So nobody had sold cookware D2C at that point. So when we
Yeah.
started doing it in 16, no playbook, nothing to follow. The one thing where I could glean a bit of information from was I was watching Casper mattress take
Mm.
off, and um, and I'm it gave me confidence because I'd never seen somebody say, "Oh, I'm going to buy a mattress on the internet." I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you got to go to the store, right? You got to lie down on it, roll around, see how it feels. And people had always said you have to go to a store and pick up a frying pan and feel the weight and pretend you're flipping an omelet, and
Yeah.
um, so we you know that gave us a bit of confidence, but you know, it was challenging to find the right messaging in
Mm,
16 and 17. So
yeah.
stuff wasn't always landing. And also, like, you'd only, I think, what is it, 15, second half of 15, you could buy Facebook ads. It wasn't
Yeah.
that old. So it wasn't like there were a ton of masters out there yet.
Yeah.
And so, like, even seeking out the right counsel so you can make judicious uh, strategies about the way you want to spend your money, it was a lot of hit or miss. So
Mm,
we actually had an opportunity. We had done business with Costco before,
okay.
and we knew the Costco people, and they had they um they were willing to give us a courtesy meeting with them.
Mm,
And I flew up there and showed them our cookware. And they're like, oh, well, this is different. I go, yeah, it's the first innovation in cookware in 50 years. It's,
yeah.
and I'm explaining the value props. You can use metal utensils. It goes in your oven, your dishwasher. It's the most durable cookware on the market. It has a lifetime guarantee. That's how durable it is. And they're like, yeah, but where are you sold? I'm like, well, no, we're a D2C brand. And they roll their eyes. And then
Oh,
I
wow.
played up my kind of ace card because I'd read an article just a week or two before that. They're very concerned that the average shopper is 55 years old in their store. So I go, you know what?
Mm,
Maybe this isn't for you. We're
yeah.
we're not the baby boomers cookware. We're Gen Z. We're the millennials cookware. So they buy online. Sorry for wasting your time. And as soon as she heard that, she was kind of like, okay, tell me a little bit more. And we wound up getting the product into Costco. And why I like that was Costco likes you to do in-store demos. And I
Yeah.
looked at those in-store demos in the same way I look at some of our Facebook ads. I have an
Mm,
opportunity in 30 seconds or a minute to tell a story to a captive audience. Um,
yep.
and what I did was the stuff that wasn't working, we went into the stores and listened to the customers and what was working there. So in 17, when we started in Costco going into 18, that gave us some like a bit of rocket fuel to tweaking the messaging for our paid strategy. And we
Yeah.
were able to, now all of a sudden we were starting to get engagement, if not a purchase. And it kind of was like a live focus group that we could use
Yeah.
to streamline our messaging.
Interesting. What kind of insights were you seeing at that time with customers? Like, what was the demographic mainly that was responsive overall, or was it pretty broad?
It was pretty broad. And that was the kind of cool thing about it because, yes, we do skew a little younger
Mhm.
than many cookware brands. We also skew um, a little, I would say we are roughly 50-50 male to female. And I would
Yeah.
say there's many cookware companies maybe skew a bit more female and their purchasers. Um,
Yep.
but in the store, what we found was the value props that really resonated with people um, were the durability and the longevity of the product. Those were the
Mm,
two most that they,
yep.
that they cared about. Um, like we always played our pan up as badass looking and sexy looking because it's not as pretty. Or there's prettier cookwares out there with powder blue or marigold yellow, and some people like that. Like
Yep.
we were always about form over function. Excuse me, function over form.
Yep. For
It
sure.
had to work great. And the fact that our pan looked really cool was a bonus, but it had to work great. That's it. We were never going to sacrifice function for form.
Yeah.
And as we started tweaking that messaging, it resonated across ethnicities,
Mm,
across income levels, and really across gender as well.
yeah. Interesting. Yeah, on the point of function, HexClad is one of the few pans that I'm comfortable cooking a steak in and be confident in that clean sear. From the start, I mean, we can dive into kind of the partnership you have now with Gordon Ramsay, but were you leaning into that professional side of cooking? Like, was that the messaging angle you guys were taking? What was that overall?
So another good question because see, if it went back to what was our goal, and part of the reason, like, um, I think when you're investing all your own money, your goal has to be able to create, it needs to be creating a legacy brand. You
Yeah.
can't, it's not like it's easy to go to Vegas with somebody else's money. So if I
Yeah.
got all this private equity or this VC money or whatever, yeah, it sucks if I lose it, but then you lick your wounds and you start over, right? And
Yeah.
they write it off. We were always out to build a legacy brand. It wasn't a cash grab. It wasn't about, how quickly can we do a deal and exit. I've never thought about exiting. That's never been like part of it. So,
Yeah.
so in that way, you want to create this brand that people trust for a lifetime. And that's why when we design the cookware, we test everything so stringently in the labs that
Mhm.
we can confidently give it a lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
Does a pan occasionally crap out? Of course it does. We replace it. And then
Yeah.
do pans keep lasting? I mean, my pans are 10 years old almost. Mine are from the 15 batch in my
Wow.
kitchen. So they'll be 10 years old. And I cook all the time. If I'm in LA, I cook 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah.
So we built it for that. That was attractive to a professional chef. It wasn't the real intention, but we noticed as we were giving them to professional chefs, they loved the pans because they were like, this holds up in my
Yeah.
kitchen. Also, it's great at home. And then, buddy, there's some, like, every now and then you have these moments in your life that just align for you and you're paying attention. And one was that when we noticed very quickly, as soon as Gordon Ramsay started following us on Instagram, the guy who was managing, he's like, Gordon Graham is following us. We're like, kidding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is like, and the weird thing is, like, I've had like a man crush on Gordon for like a while because I just
Yeah.
love his attention to detail, his not putting up with half-assed work. That's when he screams. It's when people try to pull one over on him. He's
Yeah.
just so dedicated to doing it well. And as he and I become friends, and we're very close, I talk to him like at least once every 2 weeks because he's very involved in the company. And we
Yeah.
talk about that. And you know what? He was following us. We sent a direct message to him, and probably his assistant answered it. We're like, hey, can we send you some pans? Yeah, Gordon has one. He likes it. Send him a couple more. Sent more. By the way, does Gordon have a cookware deal? We never really thought about that. And then it
Yeah.
just made perfect sense. And next thing you know, I'm talking to Gordon's business manager, and he's like, listen, Gordon likes your product. So if you want to hire him as a spokesman, he probably, I don't remember the number, but he was probably like, yeah, pay him $1 million. He'll do a commercial for you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's a lot of money. And he goes, but Gordon really likes the product, and Gordon is a businessman and he really likes to get involved with things. So I think we could do something deeper, more robust if you're into it. I'm like, now we're talking. And
Yeah.
then we just had a few conversations, then cut to Gordon and I on a Zoom call during the pandemic. And we talked for almost an hour and a half, and we were just talking about everything we would do together. And I think we both knew like we fit well. And, and then of course you got to let the lawyers try to screw it up for you, and they get in and they're putting all the language in the contract. So it took a few months, but then we launched with Gordon, and it's been great because he's such a believer in the product, and
Yeah.
it's in his restaurants, it's on all his TV shows, you know, and that led us into becoming the cookware that chefs use as well. Like we designed it for home chefs. That's who we
Yeah.
designed it for. So the idea that all these other amazing chefs, like we have, Dominique Crenn and Nancy Silverton, two of the biggest chefs in the US here. They're on TV all the time. And in the UK, Claire Smith and Paul Ainsworth, they're on
It's
TV.
incredible.
They all have multiple Michelin stars, and they love the product, and they talk to me like it's not this. I'm probably the most proud of. They don't
Yeah.
talk to me like it's a business arrangement. Like we text each other, hey, congrats on the baby, or congrats on this, and we bust each other's balls a bit, and we talk about we're bringing the best product to the people, and it's something I'm probably most most proud of, that
Mm,
relationship, because that has permeated throughout the company. So
yeah,
our entire crew is like that. They're so passionate. Like, we've had a couple people quit in 6 or 7 years. Like, nobody leaves because, you know, we all respect each other and we all rally around the point that we're trying to bring the best possible product to the public.
that's incredible. I'm sure a lot of consumers out there, their first introduction is because of the authenticity behind a chef or like Gordon Ramsay, the partnership you guys have with him. I mean, what has that had towards the company? What momentum has that brought? Just having Gordon on and the chef backings as well, knowing that they're cooking their own food on these pans that we are in our home.
Um, you know, I mean, it's obviously great. Look, Gordon is unique. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm with him sometimes. Like, we'll be in a place, like we'll be in Vegas for something, for a work thing. Like, we were there for F1 together,
Mhm.
and they act like the Beatles are walking by with him. Like, he has transcended food. He's one of the biggest stars on the planet, and
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, he's at the Super Bowl, and like the Chiefs players and the 49er players are coming up to him and asking, "Hey, could I please get a selfie with you?"
Yeah.
Normally it'd be the other way around. And so he has that. And not only is he a big star, he has this street cred as a chef. Like, other
Mhm.
chefs go to him like he's the godfather, because he is. He
Yeah.
still has the 3 Michelin star restaurant that he's very involved with. Yes, he doesn't cook any every day. None of those 3 and 2 star Michelin starred chefs cook every day usually.
Yeah.
They pop in, they design menus. And then when you get this group of them, um, it gives your product credibility. And I will say this. I mean, everybody gets paid because everybody has to make a living, and they have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
They're not getting paid. Nobody's ever shaken us down to try to get something outrageous. It's all very reasonable, because they're like, I'd rather work with something I believe in. And that's
Mm,
what we all have in common. And I try to return the favor with them, for example, by promoting them and being like, I want you guys, I will never put you in a position where it reflects your credibility or your dignity as a chef or a person. If
yeah.
you don't believe in something, you tell me immediately and it's dead. Um,
Yep.
I don't bring up a contract. The contracts don't matter to me. Um, it's about the relationship with them. So those guys do add, again, to use again, rocket fuel to the fire. But I think
Yep.
ultimately, um, it's the team in house that we built that's
Mhm.
led HexClad to kind of, to the top of the cookware world. Um,
Yeah.
it's also, and at the end of the day, you got to have the best product.
Yeah.
And 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 that's it. I'm very proud of our products. And the last thing I'll say on it, no matter what we do, whatever we bring out, it's got to be like the best. If we can't completely innovate it, like, we made the world's best peppermill. Now,
Mm,
people might go, well, peppermill, whatever. You know why? I hated every friggin' peppermill that I came across. So
yeah.
I bought every one. I broke them apart. I looked at all the parts, and I realized I didn't like the mechanism in it. So I went, instead of a peppercorn manufacturer, I went to a coffee bean grinding manufacturer. Makes coffee grinders. I said, you ever make a pepper grinder? He's like, no. I'm like, let's see if we can do it. Let's work backwards from there. And
Yeah.
so if we couldn't make a better thing, then we drop it. We move on to the next project.
Mm. Wow, love it. I mean, you guys have a 1 billion valuation. I mean, that's incredible for just coming up on 10 years closely here. What are some milestones you might grant towards some of the growth you guys have seen? I mean, not only the product speaks for itself, you have an amazing team. Very few members have left, as you mentioned. I would love to hear a couple points.
Um, I think it starts out with, um, we had to be very, very smart about everything we did because we were self-funded.
Hmm.
Um, and the difference when you're owners versus investors, I think you approach things differently. There's a bit of fear with everything. You're like, I can't fuck this up. I got to
Yeah.
be right. I knew that if we didn't start to be profitable by Q1 of 18, um, we were screwed.
Hmm.
So so when you approach that, like, I'm not going to just dump money on it like it's gasoline and hoping that, I get enough notice based on on not only the market presence, but say the amount of sales, whether it's profitable or not profitable, that some company comes and wants to buy the whole thing of the majority stake in it. Um, you know, that wasn't it. So to get to making this company the value that it is, to keep it that essentially, we still have the whole company. Um,
Yeah.
you know, it goes back to the DNA of having to build it prudently
Mm.
along the way. So everything we've done that way. So I don't over budget. We develop stuff carefully, and if it means taking longer to go to market as opposed to dumping more money and rushing, we stick within our budgetary constraints on those things. And I think having that part of your plan from day one um,
Mm.
gets you to this point.
Yeah.
That we are highly profitable and have been since Q1 of 18.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, the point you guys are at now, you might even have retailers coming to you, but the future of HexClad, do you see it still just remaining D2C or potential retail rollout eventually? What does that look like to you?
Look, I'll be frank. We get retailers reaching out to us every day, which is so strange because in my old
I'm
life,
sure.
you had to go chase them hoping to get a meeting. I
Yeah.
don't know if it makes sense. There's a reason why
Yeah.
why you know retail has gone up and down over the last couple of years. I mean, I would argue as D2C brands had to correct after the pandemic. I think D2C got a bit of a unfair like black eye because
Mm.
nobody really knew when the pandemic was coming to an end, when everything's going to open up again. And then people may have over ordered
Mm.
from an inventory perspective. And then
Yeah.
a lot of people wanted to go out shopping again because they hadn't been allowed to do it. So now I
Yeah.
want to spend my money this way. There are products that lend themselves to DC and products that do not. I think our space does because the great thing about being in the the food space, whether you're providing the tools, the recipes, the content, um, it's experiential, and that's something that we've been doing more and more with. Like, you know, um, we decided a year and a half, 2 years ago, though we always made content, we weren't
Mm.
looking at ourselves as a content company.
Yeah.
But we are a content company. So we're producing more and more content. We've just started, we have an in-house culinary team working on recipes again. We do a ton of content with Gordon, with Dominique, with Nancy, all the big chefs. We do
Mm.
stuff with tons of influencers. So I really think because the content delivery system is online, that
Yeah.
we can deliver our products online as well. So I would never say never with retail. It just
Yeah.
has to make sense. And unfortunately, I would say to any potential retailer that wants to work with us that the old model of retail would never work for us.
Yeah.
But the thing is, success you often happens around reinvention as
Mm.
well as invention. So
Yeah.
anything's possible.
For sure. Well, Danny, I like to conclude each episode with this. You've already shared so many great points, but if you can share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret along the way, what would you say that would be?
Okay. Um, I'd say it's a twofold answer I'm going to give you because
Yeah.
one thing I I think is important. So often, and I'm sure you've seen this, like you get these exciting entrepreneurs, and very often they're like 26,
Yeah.
27, you know,
Yeah.
and it's almost like, well, to be an entrepreneur, it's a young man's game, and or a young woman's game, and young person's game, let's just say. But here's the thing: it is in a way, and usually it comes down to how risk averse are you.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you know what? all the stupid stuff I did in my 20s, I'm jumping off this cliff. I don't care how deep the water is. That's kind of like entrepreneurship sometimes. Like,
Mm,
you don't want to convince yourself not to do it in a way. And having said that, but I want to people one thing I want to say, because I'm weird. Like, I didn't really become successful, until I was in my 50s.
yeah.
So I want people to know, like, if you have a good idea, you think it's a good idea, you know what? Go around the table. Tell the people that are going to tough love you
Yeah.
what they think about that idea. And if people like the idea, take a chance on yourself. Don't just go, oh, I missed the boat at 26. I can't do it at 46. You
Mm,
can do it. And the reason why you might even be more successful, you may not have too many swings at it at 46,
mhm.
but you've got a lifetime of successes, and more importantly, a lifetime of failures
Yeah.
that you can take your learnings from that and put that towards your first venture.
Mm,
Um, because that's like kind of sliding into the second part of the thing, to me, my failures have been more important to this final success for me than
yeah.
my previous successes were. You know,
Mm,
very often we don't spend the time focusing on what made us successful because you expected it. Well, the plan
yeah.
was success, and I reached, but you didn't plan to fail, or you
Yeah.
wouldn't have done it. So really, when you look at the failures, you got to go like, okay, what the hell happened here, and really look at it and forgive yourself, and go,
Mm,
okay, if you really figured out what you did wrong, forgive yourself, take those learnings, and now put it towards your next project, and then that one will be a success,
mm.
hopefully.
Love it. No, those are great points. Well, Danny, thank you so much for joining me today. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out HexClad at hexclad.com.